Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. My name is Lucas and today we're going to be looking at this specific example from artmeta.org/paintboxed. We're going to be recreating this inside of Framer, right? So as we scroll, we can see that there's some type of horizontal scroll, and you can see that there's a few projects here and there, and basically it's by year, right? So 1985, 1985, 1987, 89, 2023, and so on. And then at the end, there's this final section, and then you can scroll down, right? So I want to build this section in Framer, and I kind of want to build it because, it kind of looks like a portfolio project section where, you might have products that date back, a few years. You can start off with an introduction text, and then you start off with your oldest project, and then you just continue to your newest projects. I also want to attach these little floating card things to CMS, right? So to Framer CMS. So you have basically a collection of projects in CMS, and then basically these collections, these individual projects get shown here, right? So we're going to be building this in Framer with Framer CMS. So if this is something interesting for you guys, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing that we have to do is obviously create a new Framer project. And what I'm going to do is what I always do first is add the different breakpoints, right? So let's just not touch any of the, widths or heights of these breakpoints. We're going to leave it like this for now. And we're going to go back into Chrome and take a nice screenshot of this so that we can bring it inside of Framer and have it there as a reference, right? So let's go back to Framer, and I'm going to basically just drag this in. So we have this nice and looking good over here, right? So we have this over here. And now what we want to do is the following. We're going to have a section. So I'm just going to draw this visually. We're going to have a section above this that's going to be, let's say, like a blue color to represent a hero section. So we can give this a layout just to make it look more realistic and type something inside hero section. Let's make this a little bit larger. So we have this hero section over here, and then underneath we're going to have, we're just going to write section, right? So this is basically going to represent the section on top and the section at the bottom, because if we go to Chrome, they have a section on top like this one. It's pretty fancy. We're just going to have a standard, website section. And then once we finish this horizontal scroll, we're going to see this over here, right? It's going to scroll downwards. So this is going to be the next blue section. Okay. So let's go ahead and go back. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to kind of set the stage for this whole section. We need something that's going to be pretty wide, right? This is just 1/3 of it, I would say, but we need something that's going to be much wider. And yeah, let's just set the stage up for that. Before we do that though, let's just add this section inside of here, and let's make sure that this is a layout. So let's just make sure that this is a layout, right? This would have to be fill width. And let's add this next section underneath. Again, fill width. Let's remove this gap by going like this, 0. And now you can see that this is going to be going in between these two sections, right? And this has to, let's set this height to fit content. Perfect. So now we got this going for these different viewports, which is perfect. Now what we want to do is we want to do this horizontal scrolling. Instead of doing this from scratch, the best thing to do is always to research online for remix links, right? Maybe someone else did it and didn't do it in exactly the same type of style that you want it to be, but they have like a type of, structure that you can work with, right? And I did just that. I went on Google and I searched horizontal scroll Framer, and I found this one. This one didn't really work because this was more for a navigation, but this one was pretty good. right? So, and shout outs to Paul Lapkin that wrote this blog post and created the remix link. But basically what you have here is a remix project featuring a stunning horizontal scroll technique used for a client website. Grab it for free. So I'm going to remix this somewhere, wherever we can see it, demo and remix. And you can see here, this is the demo. So this is the hero section. If we scroll downwards, you can see we have this nice scroll effect like this, right? So this is kind of exactly what we need. So let's go ahead and remix this file. And I'm just going to put in my email information. And then the projects should automatically open in your Framer profile, right? So you can go ahead and look at the layers. In this case, he used a desktop XL. So it's 1400 pixels. We're going to be, obviously using our size, which is 1200 to tablet to phone. So we're going to have to, make this responsive in a way, but we can find here this horizontal scroll section, right? This is the hero section, which has a specific top scroll section, which is not so important, but we just need this one, which has this horizontal scroll, which consists of this gallery with the images and the scroll trigger, which is basically a scroll section for this gallery, right? So inside of this gallery, we have the images that has a specific scroll transform section in view. And then once we have this viewport in the viewport, it basically triggers this scroll trigger, right? Which is this one over here. And then inside of this, we have different images with like some type of, nice little effect. I'm going to show you right now. You see how the images get kind of larger inside of its frame, right? So it has that effect. I kind of like that effect. It's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and just copy this horizontal scroll. That's all we need for now. So we do that. Let's go back to our file. And we go to our desktop. Let's close these and paste. And we're going to paste this right in the middle of these two. Perfect. So if I were to press play, it's kind of working, but it's not really working. And the first thing that we need to fix is something called the overflow. We have to set all the parent stacks to visible. So right now this one is set to hidden. Let's just set this to visible. And now it should be working. Yeah, now we can see this looking like this, right? So, okay, we got that, right? And as you can see, we also have it for the tablet version. So if I were to press play, we also have it for the tablet version. And we also have it for the phone version, right? For the phone version, we're going to do it a little bit differently. So basically what this website does, let's just right click inspect, and we have the iPhone, and you can see that it still has this cool little style with the CMS items being a little bit slanted, but it's all relative under each other, right? So we're going to keep that style. We're not going to have, them absolute and being everywhere. We're going to keep them relative, going in a stack downwards vertically. So let's remove this and let's go back into Framer and let's get started with building our project. So if we go back to the main website, we can see that up here there's this title, right? And then we have this description text, and then it starts off with the different items, right? So let's start off with these two first. So we're going to go back into Framer, and I created this little title called Projects in Timeline, and I'm just going to paste this in here somewhere. I want to paste it actually inside of this images one. And what we're going to do is I want to get all of these different thumbnails and add them to a stack, and then put this like this, and then start this off from over here, right? And now the next thing that I want to try to do is I want to bring in this secondary, this description text, right? And we're going to also put it in here, and we're going to put it into this stack of the images. I'm going to put them all the way over here actually. And we can set this to be a little bit small, smaller in width. So let's set this like as a fixed width. I'm actually thinking right now, should we do it like this or should we not? Because right now this is set to something like this. We need something like about 300 pixels relative. And this should be starting at the start. If I were to press play, how would this look like? Yeah, it's starting to look good. Well, let's go back a step. So I added this, let's forget about this text for now. Let me go back here and press play. This is looking much cleaner, right? It's stopping here. So there was something about I think the width that was wrong. So right now you can see that the image is set to 196. What happens if I set this to like 220? I'm just curious to see how this would work out with the width. See, it would basically stop over here. So there would be more scroll, but the width, it wouldn't stop in the middle, it would stop more at the end. So with that being said, let's go back a step. Let's leave it at 196. And I'm gonna put this text in here in the same type of level as this. And I'm gonna actually create a stack out of this. And set this to start, right? So we have these two, we have these two, and we have these two. And let me just see how this would look like. And these images have a fill. This has a fixed height of 462. And if I were to remove this for all of these, I'm just curious to see if I were to put this in here, how this would look like. Right, let me press play. Okay, so now it's starting to look more like it. Okay, and for this one, we can increase let's make this a fill. This has a max width, but let's increase the font size to something much larger. And let's increase this max width to be something like 750. Right. So projects in the timeline, we have this text. This might be nice if this was going at the bottom. And then here we can add our different, our different items. And let's say that we want to add a title also over here at the end. What we can do is we can duplicate this and we can make this go like this. And we can, instead of doing distribute at the start, we can do space between. So right now, if I were to press play, you can see that the second title comes at the very end, right? So we have this title with this text over here. And then we have that at the very end. And we also have this scroll trigger at a 100 VH. I'm interested to see if we were to increase this to about 200 VH, how would that interact with this? Would the scroll take longer or would it not take longer? Would that impact the animation? Doesn't look like it. Okay. So now what we want to do is that instead of using these images, what we can do is we can set up a CMS. So we can go to CMS, click here on the plus sign and write projects. And let's set up the fields. So we have field 1. So if we go back here, we can see we need an image, we need a date, we need a description, right? So let's go back into Framer. We need let's make the date a text, right? we need a image, cover image or thumbnail, however you want to call it. Put this at the very front. And then we need a short description, which was that text that you saw earlier underneath the date. Short description, let's put that under date. And then slug and content is, slug is the link that would take it to the detail page, and the content would be, the actual content about this. So we can leave this like that for now, and let's start creating the items. So I'm gonna create one with you guys, and then I'm just gonna, skip until I'm finished. So let's just use this one. This was like made in 2009, or let's say 2017. And the short description would be, what we can do is we can just copy this. So this is the short description, right? Copy, go into Framer, paste, and then here we can just write some random content. So, and another thing is I want to also add a ID. So let's add a option. Not option. Let's remove this. Not an option. We want a toggle. What was it? No, not a toggle. Sorry, guys. We need a number. Yes, we need a number, and this is going to be called the ID. So we need something from 0 to about 5, if we're going to have 6 projects, for example. And we need this ID to kind of identify each project, because we just want to show one per each collection. I'm going to show you now how we're going to build it, but this ID thing is quite, important for this, specific case study. So I'm going to, continue with the other projects. So now I do have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's just add 5 over here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 in total, spanning different years. Something to consider is that right now the slug is being created by the date. If you have, projects being that have the same date, I would suggest you make a new field for a title of the project, for example, and you make that slug reflect that title instead of the date. Just, piece of advice. But in this case, I'm just showing you how this would work, right? And now we want to bring this inside of here, and we want to have it in this particular style. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into collections. I'm going to go into projects, drag this in. And first thing that I want to do is I want to apply this filter for the ID. So select filter, ID. So this one is going to equal 0 since it's 2017. And we're going to go one layer down and make this vertical instead of horizontal. And we're going to basically just get this, duplicate this, and instead of it being the date, we're going to make it the short description. And we're going to get this, and we're going to set the width to a fixed width. Something like this. This would have to actually fill this, and everything else would have to fill. Now it's starting to look more like it, and we can set this to a specific height like this. There we go. So we have this filled up to about, let's say, 400, and we have the image, and we have this date. I don't want it to be body. Let's add a nice little font like Francais, and make it black, and make it about 24. And the same with this one. I like this Francais light. Yeah. So remove the inter, add the Francais, make it light, make it dark, but not too dark, and maybe decrease the line height to something like this. And then what we can do is we can get these two, add a stack to it so that it's a little bit closer to each other. And then what we can do is we can add a more of a gap over here, like 20. So now we have this project. It's looking good, and we want to add it right here. Boom. So we added it there, And so it's basically the text, the project, all in one stack. And now what we're going to do is we want to delete these guys. So we want to delete these three. I'm going to delete them like that. Boom. And I'm going to make this start from the start. Okay. So now this is where things get, a little bit funny, right? As you can see in the phone, we have one way of doing it. You see this is not really responsive yet. We're going to have to do that, in some time now, but let's go ahead and start with the desktop. So instead of making this relative, I'm going to make this absolute. And as you can start seeing that it starts to collapse if I make it absolute. And, this text kind of crams up, goes to the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to a fixed height for now. And then I'm going to make this, again, absolute. And then I'm going to rotate this. And as you can see, it starts to hide underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that it's a nice little rotation like this, not too much. Lower it a little bit. And then all of these stacks above, I have to set this to visible, right? This one as well. This one's still hidden. So let's go to the one on top of that, which is this one. Set this to visible. And then set this to visible. So all of these have to be set to visible to start off with. Right, so now everything is looking like visible. Okay, so now we have that. And as you can see, since it's being set to visible, the overflow, in the mobile version, you can already start seeing that everything is starting to go away from its, from the side. We don't really want that for the mobile version. Okay, so now what we have here is this one. What we can do is duplicate this, move this around, probably like this, go like this a little bit, lower it a bit if you want. Set the ID to the next one, which is 1, right? So we have this one now. Maybe we can increase it, doesn't have to be lowered. And cool, so we got that. But it's going to be quite, pain to manage everything when you have 6. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these two, and I'm going to lower them like this, and I'm going to lower this one like this. And I'm going to add a fill to this so that we can use this as like a space. I'm not going to add a fill to that. I'm going to add a fill to this actually. And we're going to increase this a bit, maybe I would say 250. So we have a little bit more room to play with. Here as well, I would say a little bit more, maybe 320. And over here, this is where I want it to be fill. And I want the content to be fit and not viewport, right? So right now we have these two titles. So as you can see, we have these two titles going like this. And this is not what we want. So we're going to delete one from the mobile version. And what we're going to do is we're going to make these guys not absolute. We're going to make them relative. So this one has to be relative. This one also has to be relative. And we're going to make this stack go like that. And we're going to make the height fit the content, right? And we're going to make the width set to fill, I would say. Also for this one, let's set it to fill. And then what we can do is we can add some type of gap here, more of a gap like 60. So this is starting to look a little bit better, right? In the phone, we can also make this not so tilted, something like this. So this is how I would imagine it to be on the phone. And don't worry, you don't have to leave your file like this forever. We're just going to do this at the beginning so that everything is a little bit more organized visually, right? Visually speaking. So let's get this project, again, the top layer, duplicate this, move it. I'm going to move it like this, go like this. Let's put ID number 2, right? That's the next one. And then we duplicate this again, go like this. put this a little bit higher, maybe number 3. So we have 4 now. Duplicate this like this, 4, and then just duplicate this again. Oops. And we have number 5, but we still don't have space. So what we can do is, again, just increase the whole width of this to about 300 pixels. So what we can do here is we can move this a little bit over here. Move this like that. Move this over here like this. This one we can move in and keep it like right here on the edge. And I'm thinking of maybe adding a type of max width for these images, right? So right now it's inside of this image gallery, and we can add a max width. So we don't want the max width to be 100, we want it to be 300, right? But we want it to be this fixed one. So that's going to help us a lot, actually. So let's just preview this. Let's actually give some more space here and there for these other ones. And then we can go ahead and start with the previewing. So this looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and press play. And if I see, looks good, but it stops eventually. We want it to not stop. And I guess it has to do with this viewport. If we set this to fixed and a little bit more. No, it's not really doing the job, right? So it's not, it does not have to do with this. So let's just go back and set this to 100 VH. Okay, what we have to actually look at is under images, under this effects, in the 2 one, this is where we have to set this offset to be a little bit more. We have to make it like this, right? And then here I would say increasing this a bit might help. Let's see. So we have this nice little view, and then at the end it goes down here. So that's perfect. On the desktop it looks great. I want to just increase my screen size a bit, and even with a large screen it's looking good. Perfect. And I want to even just, I know you guys won't really see it, but I have a very large screen. I just want to see how this looks like from a large screen perspective. Okay, it does kind of end in a not so nice position. So what we can do is I'm going to just decrease this screen size a bit and kind of see if we can make this centered somehow. So we don't want this to be centered like this. We want it to be going like this, but we want something here to be centered. Let me see how this would look like. Going like this again. Okay, I guess it doesn't really stop. We would have to add some type of max width to this horizontal scroll section, and that this horizontal scroll section is smack in the middle. So I'm going to add a max width to this. Let's see how this would look like. Max width would be fixed 1200, and we can leave this distribute to center, and then it works like this. If I were to increase this again, yeah, now it's looking much better. Perfect. So that was the case. As you can see, it starts off like in the middle of the screen. So that's exactly what we wanted. So how's it looking like in the other screens? So right now on the tablet, let's just preview that. And we have this, and then eventually it's going to cut off. It's not too big. So what we can do is we can increase this relative to be a little bit more, and then we would have to adjust this scroll to be a little bit more like this, right? So if I were to press play now, it would look like this. This is perfect, right? This is for the tablet. So we got that for the tablet. And now for the phone, it's going to be different. We don't want to have any type of sticky effect here. So I'm going to remove that. Wherever we see a sticky, we can just remove that. So sticky here, let's just set this to relative. So let's just play this again. Now it just scrolls down easily, which is great. And we have this thing. Let's just remove that effect, that scroll effect. And we don't need this scroll trigger anymore. We could just delete that. And it goes down to the next section. So if I press play, you can see perfect. It's looking great. All right, so that's for the phone. And obviously for the phone, what you would want to do also is add another section for that last title over here. Put that somewhere at the end. Basically by creating a new section and adding that to the phone. So now what we want to do is the following. We want to add some type of animation to this. We want to make it look good. So first of all, I want to add some type of shadow, like a realistic shadow everywhere. So I'm just clicking on the images and adding shadows, realistic, shadow realistic to our 6 images from our 6 projects. Realistic. And now what I want to do again is this effect where it just starts to loop, right? We have this loop and we have to add this mirror effect, and then we just add this to maybe about 4 on the Y offset. And if we press play, well, we start to get this. We don't want that. So we have to go back in here and remove this, make this 0. And then we can see that it just starts to slowly like wobbles, right? So we want maybe something a little bit like this and maybe a little bit faster. Maybe not so fast, but you get the point, right? You can adjust that here, maybe something like 0.8 seconds. Now we're getting something that wobbles. And then if you like that, what you can do is just copy this, paste this effect here. So paste effects, make sure that you're just selecting the correct thing, right? This image, paste effects, and paste effects. All right, so that's that. So we have this looking good. Everything is wobbling, amazing. Now what we want to do is we want to link these 2 projects. So what I want to do is I want to add another effect here that once you click on, or once you hover your mouse over this image, it kind of increases the size a little bit. So we're going to go do a hover, and basically the scale will be 1.05, I would say, not 1.1, but 1.05. And yeah, let's just add that. So let's just copy this effect and paste effects again everywhere. Paste effects. Paste effects. All right. And once we do that, we can see that it starts to, react to our mouse. And then the final thing that I want to do is that whenever, you can hover over it, the image gets larger. And then what I want to do is that I want to add a link to these images. So first thing, we have to add these CMS detail pages. So projects So plus CMS page projects detail page. We have 6 project pages, right, for each year. And then we go home, and then basically you just click on this image, go back to the layers to make sure that you're on the image, click on this image, click on the link, and then click on this project slug, right? Link, project slug, link, project slug. And you do that for all of these images, and then basically once you click on these images, it takes you to that specific project page. And that's basically the whole essence of this tutorial, is just to have a nice little scroll effect that takes you to this page, a horizontal scroll section, right, looking like this with a nice little effect. And then if you scroll down, you go to the next section. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial. Also, to make sure we can check the phone, it takes you to that page, right? Everything is working well, responsive. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this little tutorial. If you have any more questions, please feel free to write them down in the comments below. And I have the remix link for this, so if you want to use that for your own projects, feel free to use that. I'll put that in the comments below as well. And yeah, hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.